But let's start off with a Tottenham update, and we're going to start off with some potential transfer news, and we're going to talk about Pedro Neto once again, as Nazar Kinsella says that Wolves want a club record fee of 60 million plus if they are going to sell Pedro Neto in the upcoming transfer window. Ange Postecoglou is a big admirer of Pedro Neto, with Spurs boss set to consider adding another forward to his squad this summer. However, a Spurs move for Neto could depend on if they activate Werner's buy option or not.
I hope it isn't dependent on that, because if it is, then it means that, and this is exactly what I was worried about in the previous update we did. That is, if we do activate Werner's buy option, are we going to consider that our main forward option addition in the summer, and we're going to justify not spending big on a forward by the fact that we're signing Werner? That can't be the case. As much as I like Werner, even if he kills it from now to the end of the season, we still need another one in addition to him as well, because we need players in the wing positions which are more kind of profile perfect for Ange Postecoglou. We know Pedro Neto is absolutely of that profile. I absolutely love Pedro Neto. I think he's an exceptional winger. Obviously, we're going to see him in the flesh on the weekend. We're going to see how much damage he's going to do. I'm sure he's going to cause us all sorts of problems. But I really hope we don't. I really hope we're not sitting here at the end of the season. Werner's had like a decent season, and we end up purchasing him because he's cheaper, rather than pushing the boat out and going for someone like Pedro Neto.
Yeah, with the price that Timo Werner is going to cost, with the clause that we have in his deal, like, there is no reason why we can't spend big on another winger as well, right? It should not be either or. It should be both or just Neto. You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't just be. It's ridiculous to say it's either or with the price that Werner is.
I don't think it's a money thing. I think it's a numbers thing. Because if you sign Werner, then you've got Werner. You've also got Solomon still there. You've got Brian Hill is still on the books. You've got obviously Son, Richarlison, Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson. All these players, like, something's going to have to give. You're going to have to get rid of a few. If you're adding Werner, like, you're going to have to get rid of a couple probably before you bring anyone else in.
Yeah, well, that's just the reality, and that's what the case should be. And if the wingers aren't suited to Ange Postecoglou's system and the profiles that he wants from a winger, then we're going to have to get rid of a few anyway. So why not bring in two and get rid of a few?
Yeah, but who is it? Johnson's not going anywhere. Kulusevski's not going anywhere.
Well,
Son's
Hill
not
for
going
starters.
Richarlison's not going anywhere. So that's already 4. You sign Werner, that makes it 5. You've got Solomon, who's only just come. So is he going to go anywhere? That's another one. That's already 6 there before Hill. So so that's where the issue comes. Look, for me, that's why you have to be very careful before making the Werner deal permanent. But yeah, I can understand why there's can be a few complications if Werner is brought on a permanent deal with bringing another one without someone else leaving.
If that's the case, then I'm completely against the Werner signing then, because we just need someone with a higher, someone that can fit the profile a lot better than Timo Werner. And yes, he's been all right since he's joined, but we need someone better, in my opinion.
I agree.
So that's the situation on Timo Werner. Apart from that, we've got a couple of quotes to bring you, quite a lot on Heung-min Son. But before we get into that, we've got some quotes from Timo Werner on why he joined Tottenham and chose to join Tottenham. And he says, in the end, it happened very quickly. 2 or 3 weeks earlier, Tottenham had already contacted me, but I never responded because I thought I could achieve something in Leipzig over the winter. The more the interest grew, the more often Tottenham contacted my agents. It became so interesting that in the end, I couldn't say no anymore. The fun has completely returned. I've changed a lot as a person, and I'm much happier now. After just 5 games, you can tell the decision to move has paid off for me. The season is still long, and I want to build on my first performance. Just the fact that I'm playing in our stadium has already made the move worthwhile. It's impressive. And he also said in that interview is how much of an influence Ange Postecoglou was on joining Tottenham. But Timo was ghosting us at first.
But obviously, he actually returned to Leipzig, but things hadn't gone to plan totally. But last season was actually not a bad season for him, like totally. He got 16 goals, got a few assists, was scoring in the Champions League. So maybe when we registered our interest, he was kind of happy at Leipzig and didn't want to go anywhere. But obviously, as the season progressed, he wasn't getting any game time. Spurs needed another body in the January window to supplement our attacking force with Son going on the Asia Cup. Maybe the stars kind of aligned a bit on that front. So he might have ghosted us at first, but as he says there, he's very happy with the choice he's made. You can see that he's looking happy at the moment. You can see how he's interacting with his teammates. In interviews, he seems very confident. He seems like I love what I'm listening to his interviews, because he just seems like a very normal guy, like who's he's not very media trained in that way. Like he says and does things which are maybe the club want him to be a bit more monotone, but he's quite funny when you hear him speak in interviews and stuff. So I'm happy with him at the moment. I think he's doing a good job, and clearly he's trying to do his best to get back into that Germany squad for the Euros, whether he makes it or not, up in the air at the moment, I would say. But whether he signs permanently, that's a big decision. And even though it's not a lot of money, it's not the money that's the problem. It's just how many bodies do you want in the forward line, and it's about who we keep and who we let go and all these different things. So I like Timo. I like his personality. I like that he's coming here to prove a point, but he's still got a lot to prove.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But, in terms of what you're saying with the numbers as well, just having a think about like Kulusevski could be considered as maybe even a central player next season. And that frees up another space in the wide areas, which leaves a spot on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, if Brian Hill goes, that does leave another option as well. So there are kind of moving parts to it. It's not like set in stone, for sure. Mm-hmm. And we'll finish off talking about this Heung-min Son interview. I've picked out a number of quotes, but we'll go by quote. First one is him talking about Ange Postecoglou, and he says, first of all, there's a high sense of pride and confidence in the brand of football that our manager pursues. I learned tremendously from him about that passion for football and about things I learned from him as a human. I consider myself as a really lucky player because so many great managers taught me so many great things. I'm very thankful that I was able to meet another great manager, learn about his football and grow as a footballer and a person. But Ange is genuinely an amazing person. I have a very high respect for him because he wants to play his unique football in any situation and feel pride in that. Right now, our players have not perfectly accommodated to his ideas, but when we do, I'm confident that will become a much better side. And that is a really good thought, isn't it? To think like we're right now 7 points off the top of the league, fourth in the table, and we're not even like fully there yet.
Yeah, and that's what we've been saying all season. And this is what I've been saying anyway. Yes, there's been bumps in the road so far this season. There have been games where we've been battered by like the likes of Brighton and Chelsea and whatever, and we've looked lackluster in some games against likes of Wolves and a few weeks ago maybe Everton and stuff like that. But that's always going to happen at this stage. I'm just looking at how we're doing and where we are on the table and our performance level, and I'm amazed we're at this stage so quickly that we're already in a top 4 race. I expected us to be kind of out of it by this stage, to be honest. I didn't expect us to be anywhere near a top 4 race going into the season. I thought it was going to be a big struggle and it was going to be a big learning curve this season, but the fact that we're on 47 points after 24 games, we're only 7 points off the top, let alone in the top 4, is astounding. And I think that's absolutely right what Sonny's saying. Hopefully we can do something special this season. I think obviously, getting close to that title is going to be beyond us, I would assume. But if we get into that top 4 or even top 3, that would be an astounding first season for Ange.
Yeah, absolutely. The next quote is of Sonny reacting to being asked how is it being one of the older members of the squad. And he says, it's quite sad now that you reminded me of this. Now I remember the fact that I am aging right now before training, but it is the reality. So far, I've had many experiences while being a professional footballer. I learned some fun things, good things, sad things, and many things. I grew up as a football player and as a person, so I hope that younger players feel comfortable. The players in our team are maintaining a really good atmosphere, and I don't feel like there's anything in particular that I can help with in this aspect because the lads always put their best on the pitch. I always think about how to get the best out of these players' performances on the pitch. For this reason, I always talk a lot with the players and sometimes have deep conversations. I think this could be why we have recently seen better synergy. For sure, there are assignments for me in the future to take better care of these players because these players are certainly playing for Tottenham with a sense of responsibility. I think it's my duty to have responsibility with these things and make a more cohesive team, and spoken like a true captain there.
Yeah, I mean, he might be one of the older members of the team, but we know he's young at heart, Sonny. He's still like a little kid on the training ground. You can see that obviously he's got that serious side to him, and we can see since he's come into that captain role, he's taken more of that leadership responsibility. He's taken more of that leadership role amongst the dressing room, even though he's always been a player who gets on with everyone and is making jokes to everyone, but you can see him now taking on that responsibility to make sure he's encouraging everyone, making sure that if anyone has a bad miss or has not having a great game, he's trying to get the best out of them. He's trying to lift their spirits. He's trying to not let them get too down. And that's such an impressive thing with Son. So even though he doesn't like being reminded that he is 31 and maybe getting on a bit, he still takes great care of himself. He still looks, in a really great condition, let's be honest. Obviously, maybe he's not as intense, or maybe as what I would say lightning as he was, back when he was, in his young early 20s, mid 20s.
Did you not see him skin Trippier alive?
He's still there. As I say, he still has his moments where he can skin players, and he's still got that pace to run in behind and threaten the opposition. And he's still so clever with his movement. He's still one of the best finishers in the league. So even though he's 31, I still believe he's got many years left ahead of him. And I think the players are all better for it, or the players around him. I think he's just such a positive influence in the dressing room. Everyone just has to be together when he's there. He's like, when it's like when you say when you have a family who aren't getting along, and you give them like a puppy, like everyone just can't help but like have love around that puppy. It's like that's what I feel like what Son brings. Everyone can't help but just feel love when he's around. Absolutely.
The lovable captain, that's for sure. That shows a lot of sides to himself, not just being lovable, but he's got those leadership qualities that we've been missing for quite a while here at Tottenham. So it's great to see. This is a funny quote, him talking about Radu Dragushin, and he says, I was a bit scared of him at first because he's so big, and we talked a few times, and he's really kind and super talented. I'm an attacker and he's a defender, so I wish we can talk more about how we could cause more problems to attackers on the pitch. So Sonny was a bit scared of Dragushin when he came to meet him.
I'm not surprised. I think I'm scared of Dragushin. Look at him; he's an absolute unit. I think if he was walking on the street, you definitely cross the road. You don't want to bump into him, honestly. But yeah, look, I'm delighted he's one of us instead of one of the opposition. That's the main thing.
And last but not least, we're going to talk about Sonny talking about that fan reception when he came back after the Korea at the Asia Cup with Korea, and he said, I would love to say a thank you. It's a huge honor to get a reception like that. Toughest week of my life, but you all made me very happy again, lifted me up, and I'll never forget this moment. And you saw those clips of him returning to Tottenham. It wasn't the usual Sonny, usually smiley, happy Sonny. You could see something had happened out there in the Asia Cup. But since he's come on, since he got that assist, you're seeing that smiley character around the training ground again, aren't you?
Yeah, he seems like he's back to it now. You saw around the what's it called, the open training session, he was having jokes with everyone, a lot of banter, a lot of happy selfies with the fans and everything. He did seem back to his old self. It was quite interesting. Reportedly, the Spurs press refused to allow any questions about what happened in the Asia Cup, after all the media leaks with Lee Kang-in and all these different things. That's how he got his dislocated fingers. And I think that's a smart move. That's what Spurs did. Instead of, feed into any of that stuff and cause more negativity and maybe even, pull Son from the open training session because maybe reporters are going to be asking him about that or anything like that. They just refused to let anyone ask about it. They just posted positive content about him, and they protected Sonny from what could have been an even worse week for him with all those stories breaking. So that was really, really great. And the reception he got from the fans I thought was fantastic. You saw even when he was warming up, everyone was getting so excited to get him on the pitch. And then once, obviously, he comes on and Romero's giving him the armband, and there's a massive roar from the crowd, and he's cheering up the crowd. He's, we just equalised, and he's trying to get everyone going. It was a special moment, and obviously, I'm sure he said it in that interview. It's something he'll never forget for the rest of his life. And in those tough moments, I'm just glad that the Spurs fans gave him a reception to remember, because it must have been a very tough week for him. And hopefully now he's back at Spurs, we can have a really positive end to the season, and hopefully he can be central to it.
Absolutely. Big up, Sonny. Great to have you back. And that cheer when he came on was literally like a goal had been scored. That's how loud it was. Yeah. It was unbelievable. But we're going to finish off talking about the injury news going into this weekend. As Ange says in the press conference, Pedro Porro picked up a strain at training, probably could be a couple weeks for him. Destiny Udogie picked up a knock, not too serious. The game next weekend, he should be back, although we don't play next weekend, it's the weekend after. And Fraser Forster has a fracture in his foot, which will leave him out for a couple of months. So in terms of the Porro and Udogie news, hopefully it's just one game they miss.
Yeah, obviously it may works in our favour probably that Chelsea game was delayed because of these injuries now. Obviously, when
Agent Poch.
Yeah, when you look at these fullback options we have now, from going from Porro and Udogie to Davis and Emerson's obviously a massive drop-off. There's no two ways about it in terms of their quality on the ball, in terms of how effective that Emerson's maybe not massive drop-off defensively compared to Porro, you can argue, but I think Davis and Udogie, Pedro Neto is definitely going to be licking his lips a bit compared to maybe facing Udogie. He's going to be looking at Davis thinking, I can definitely get him behind him. So that's a bit of a worry. Obviously, there's a lot of fans saying, should we move Van de Ven to left back, put Dragoshin in? I think there's a good argument for it, but what I would say is, in the open training session yesterday, it was very clear that he was practicing with Emerson and Davis in the back line. So I do think that is going to be what's happening tomorrow. Will it be a case where it makes such a difference to us that we're all of a sudden going to struggle against Wolves? I mean, I'm sure it would have been a struggle even with Porro and Udogie because Wolves are a good team, but I still think we can win. I still think we can get a positive result, and it's about whether they can step in and just do a job for a game and hopefully provide enough quality to facilitate the better attacking players on the ball. I'm sure they've got enough to do that. They've both stepped in various periods and done well. Weirdly enough, they've both very rarely stepped in at left back and right back. They've both been stepping in at centre back. So
yeah. In
a weird way, do they actually have a lot of experience playing that role this season? Probably not, which is a weird thing to think about. But let's hope they can step in and be good enough. I'm sure they will be. It's only one game, and they've played left back and right back before. Emerson first day of the season wasn't that bad. He scored, didn't he? And that's, I think, probably the last time we saw him at right back. I can't remember. We've seen the left back. Was that the last time we saw him at right back?
Yeah, I do remember him I think it was Rico Henry or someone else who kept getting in behind him, and he was struggling a bit defensively that day.
And they're going to have this tomorrow. So there's definitely an argument to say he's got to watch himself, but he's got to make sure that he's very good at keeping the ball. He's not giving it away. Look, I don't expect him to do what Porro does when it comes to getting into the final, although he did score on the opening day, like getting into the final third and getting crosses in.
That was a 1 in a million, that Emerson goal.
I don't see that often, that happening. But he just has to make sure he's doing those simple things that we know he can do, and make sure that gets the ball, keeps it well, and facilitates, the better players in the forward line. And same with Davis. Yeah,
and they both actually started, didn't they, at Molineux, these two players? I think Emerson started left back, Ben Davis started left centre back, so they were on that left-hand side together, so at least they'll be on opposite sides of the pitch, so they won't be on the same side of the pitch together. But look, I think for a one-off game, it should be all right. If it was any prolonged amount of time, any period amount of time, if it was 2-3 games, I would start to worry. But because it's just one game, I think we'll be all right, to be honest. But that is your Tottenham update. Thank you for joining us for that.